Nurse Anna, and we're going to be talking about a few things today. First of all, hello, all of my new nurses and nursing students. I hope that this video is helpful to you. We are going to be talking about three things. One, getting licenses endorsed. Two, your first week of orientation as a new grad in a new grad program. And then three, the floor. Floor work. Yes. So, we're going to get straight into it. So, let's say we're going to talk about endorsements first. Let's say you want to go ahead and you want to take your licensing test. Let's say you want to take your test in Maryland, okay? You decide, I live in Maryland, I'm going to take my NCLEX in Maryland. You register, you pay your money, you sign up, you pass the NCLEX in Maryland. And then as time goes on, you're like, but I really, really want to work in West Virginia. That's where I want to get my nursing job, or you already got the job. I applied, I got the job. You are now going to have to get your license endorsed because West Virginia is not part of the compact license agreement. So if you decide that you're going to work there, you're going to have to get your license endorsed, which I said. Getting endorsed in different places, it costs different things, but I had to pay $230, so that's another $200 and something on top of what you already paid to get licensed in your state. My first thing that I want to say is that if you already know you're going to work in West Virginia or whatever place you're going to work, just go ahead and register and take your test there. But however, if you're like me and you did not know you were going to work somewhere else before you registered, or another state before you registered, then that's fine. You're just going to have to get endorsed. My second thing for getting endorsed is realize that this can take time. It can take a lot of time. In the place that I have applied, it's like, well, we do see your paperwork. We're going to look over it eventually, and then we're going to decide if what was already agreed to be enough is going to be enough. And once we've decided that, we're going to send it to someone else so they can decide as well.
One eternity later.
And then we're going to recheck your background, and it's just like a long process. I know someone who started their endorsement process in January, still has not received the full license. And she got a provisional one, but the point is that it takes a long time. And had I known that, I would have applied sooner, but I didn't apply sooner, which is why I'm now in like this strange limbo place. So I'm licensed here in my home state, but not licensed in the place that I have a job at. So we figured all this stuff out the first week of my new grad orientation. So I did all of it except for the last day. I think the last 2 days. So now, instead of working as a new grad nurse, I'm going to have to work as a PCT for the time being until my license kicks in the state that I'm working in, which is a bummer. I was like super disappointed and down on myself for days. And I was just like, why can't I do anything right? Why couldn't I do this right? Like, all I had to do was put it in earlier and this would have not happened. And so I'm gonna get back to that, but we're gonna fast forward to the first week of new grad orientation. So the first week is the same for everyone, PCTs, new grads alike. The only difference is the last 2 days, and I actually can help you with the last 2 days as well because I have the information for what they did. I just couldn't participate in that because my license is not valid in the state that I'm working in. So the first 3 days, we had to wake up earlier. I had to wake up at 4 to get there by 7:30. All the things start at 7:30. And they run until 4:15. And all of the days, it's basically, if you've ever been to an orientation at a hospital, all you're talking about is patient safety, communication, how you should communicate with people, your hierarchy, meaning who are you going to if a problem arises in this situation, drugs. If you've noticed a nurse looks like they're having some difficulties, like they're just not themselves, or a patient is always in pain. I think they tell you that in nursing school too. A patient who's on pain medication is always in pain, then you want to check on their nurse because sometimes, nurses do get addicted and have an addiction problem, so they'll be snatchifying is not a word, sorry, taking their medication from their IV poles and injecting themselves. So they go over all of that stuff. They go over their procedures for wasting medications and using how to use some of the equipment that you're going to need to learn how to use on the floor. But basically the basics, you're just going to be sitting there for hours listening to people talk. You will have breaks, but you're just going to be sitting there listening to people talk and talk and talk, which isn't awful, but it's definitely difficult to stay awake after you've been waking up at 4 o'clock every morning for the last 4 days. It's a lot. So So on the last day, the day that I missed because I was on the floor already because I couldn't participate in the RN portion, they took a med test. Basically, the test had some drug calculation stuff on it, and some of it had also just some different medications and what they should know about these medications. It was like a whole packet. They let them do an open book, but still, it still was a lot. It was still a lot, and it still is a lot. Like, I looked through it and I was like, wow, like, this is a lot of medications and stuff. Basically, all that stuff you learned in pharmacology that you may or may not have forgotten, if you're in school now, don't forget it. And if you have forgotten it, just refresh your memory, because you will need those things. Okay, sometimes the doctor doesn't catch everything because they have 65 million patients, and it's up to the nurse or whoever catches it to catch it. They also went through this really nice video where they were talking about, it actually wasn't a nice video, scratch that. It was a sad video, but it showed just how the dropping, how the ball can continue to be dropped and then serious things happen. And it was about this child. Basically, the mother was telling the story, but her child was jaundiced when he was born. And at the time, for some reason, no one did a bilirubin test. No one did any phototherapy. They just were like, okay, well, this is normal for an infant. Go home. He was still yellow when they got to the house days later, and she called the pediatrician. The pediatrician was like, nah, the baby will be fine. You're just a new mom. You're overreacting. I think that was basically the gist. You're a new mom. He'll be fine. So then the baby, started being lethargic and having other problems. And they brought the baby back, and he ended up having a brain injury from having too much, from having liver problems, and basically just from being jaundiced and having the problems that go with that. Having the problems that go with that. So he ended up having a serious brain injury. And from that, it was completely preventable, but no one did the bilirubin. When they did the bilirubin, it was ridiculously high. It was like just off the charts high. And they finally did phototherapy, but by that time the damage was done. And a similar thing happened to her husband where he was misdiagnosed. He was diagnosed appropriately, but they didn't go back in they didn't test the tumor that they removed, which is why it's important to follow up. So they tested it, but whoever sent the results off, which was likely a nurse, didn't test or didn't confirm that the place actually received the results. And so they never told the family that, yes, this was cancerous, come forth and get this treatment real quick, because this is a problem. So the family just living their merry lives thinking nothing happened, only to find out that he had by the time they did find out, he only had I think 6 months to live, because they didn't catch it at the time that the test came through, because no one checked to see if the test results were received by the place that was supposed to be testing them. Anyway, so they show things like that so that you can know that at any point in the healthcare hierarchy, you can still be the person to catch something. It's not always up to doctors. It's not all up to nurses. There's a huge healthcare model for a reason. There are PCTs. There's a hierarchy for a reason. Everyone can be accountable and everyone can check things and catch things. So I liked that video. And I was just like, that is just a shame. It's different when it's not preventable, but you could have prevented this. So I'm going to stop talking about that. That's the stuff you're going to be watching on your first day, so that they can get you in the fields and they can get you understanding how important your job is. Then you're going to get to the floor. And I don't know about you, but about 3 hours in, I realized, and I was observing the nurses and the PCTs. I was shadowing a PCT because that's what I'm going to be doing for 5 months, but I was definitely looking at the nurses that we were with, and I've realized I am overwhelmed with all of it. I was just sitting there all the stuff that needs to be done. Granted, CNA care is the same everywhere, but at the speed you have to provide it, and learning to use all the equipment on the same day, and learning to all the codes to the doors that you need to get into, and then learning where you're supposed to take stuff when the nurse says, hey, can you take this to wherever floor so I can get other stuff done while you do this. All of those things require great time management, and they require you getting into a groove. And I was just like, this is not, I don't feel ready. So anyway, I was like, I don't feel ready. So I was completely overwhelmed. And so I was really, really disappointed though when I first found out that I'm not going to be able to do the new grad program right off the bat. All of the RNs started today. I started early because I wasn't doing the same things they were doing, but I was just really, really discouraged for days. Just why can't I just do this right? Like, I have to always be the person. You know, all those things you go through, the mind traps, like, it's always me. And, you know, everyone else got their lives together but me. And it's just all that was all going on. The but me's, the pity party. And then I got on the floor and I had to get my life together and realize that, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I'm okay. If I had to start as a nurse, I'd be fine. I would be great with that. But I'm okay starting as a PCT at a hospital because there's so many things to learn that I feel like learning those things while trying to figure out how to be a new nurse would make me even more overwhelmed. Could I have done it? Yes. But I'm happy that I don't have to do it that way at this point. And it just, yes, I feel like this will be more helpful with me providing patient care because I'm still working on the same floor I was going to work on, I'm still working on the same floor I was hired for. It's just learning everything that I have to learn and prioritization the way I need to learn it. I feel like starting as a PCT is okay. It's not, the world will not end, and it's only 5 months. And I had to come to grips with that. And that's also what I want to tell you. If you suffer a setback, let's say you don't get the job you want to get, or your licensing stuff doesn't come in time, like with mine, it is not the end of the world. You can find another job temporarily. Work that job, do the best that you can do, be an asset and not a liability. And then when it's time for you to progress, you'll just be so much more prepared. And make sure you pick up as much stuff as you can along the way for what you're actually going for, like as a nurse. I definitely spent time where I was just sitting there watching them do certain procedures and watching them, as long as the patient was okay, watching them do what they do, and it still was helpful to me. So, I hope that was helpful. So, as a recap, new grad orientation is pretty good. You're going to be sitting down talking, bring food. Sitting down listening to talk, bring food, and plan. If you're an introvert, you know, just mentally prepare yourself for the conversations that are going to happen because everyone wants to talk to everybody, especially if you meet people from your unit. So mentally prepare introverts. And the second thing is, once you're on the floor, it is highly likely you'll be overwhelmed with everything you have to learn, but that's okay. I hear that is normal. And it takes about a year or two-ish for you to really come into your, for you to get your wings, for you to realize and get a flow of things and, you know, a kind of rhythm. And I don't believe, at least not at the place I work, they don't actually expect you to have your rhythm. No one expects you to know everything straight out of nursing school. And putting that kind of stress on yourself is what's going to frustrate you. And that was my problem too the first day. I was like, I'm supposed to know all this stuff. Like, I don't even know basics. Like, what's going on here? I forgot everything. And no one expects you to know everything. Do not expect that much of yourself. Just expect to make it this day, learn as much as you can, and make the most of this day and this learning experience with whatever nurse or PCT or whoever you're shadowing. Just make the most of it so that when you are out there on your own, you at least got enough knowledge to function rather than spending all this time beating yourself down for what you don't know. So I hope you have a great day, night, or whenever you're watching this, and